Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Thanks for being with us. The coach is back. I like to call him the coach. He is your life coach, your entrepreneur coach. He is Dan Clark, and he's going to make your life and your professional life so much better with some great tips. And Dan, good to have you back. How are you?
Oh my gosh, Steve, thanks for having me back. It's in the Midwest. It's kind of warm today, going to be in the 60s. Loving that a lot. The snow's gone. Going to have a beautiful day.
You know what? We're in the New York area, and oddly, we're experiencing the same thing. It's about 53 degrees and total sunshine, and maybe a little snow coming up on Sunday, but Super Bowl Sunday, who cares about that? We're not going to worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not doing anything on Sunday but watching the Super Bowl. It's one of those big events. I think we all have that in our past, and it's something I love to do.
Yep. It's all about the food too. Let's be honest.
Oh my gosh.
Get me some wings. All right. Before we get there, let's talk about your business. Now, we've circled around improving your business a few times in the past. And a lot of times people are in business and they just find I'm here. I'm not moving forward. I am a small business owner myself, and I've encountered that. Well, I just, we're okay, but we should be doing a lot better. And then we can't figure out why. What are some of the tips to move your business along?
Well, that's a great question, because when I'm working with a business owner, often they feel like they get stuck. And even in personal life, we get stuck, or we feel we can't go forward. We often think about things that are going on the outside of us, or I'm going to use the word procrastination in the moment because it's something I've been thinking about and working with this week with clients. Procrastination is actually more about the emotions on the inside of us. And the emotions that we have on the inside of us are so powerful because they actually prevent us or accelerate us into do what we want to do. And I want to use another word. I love this word. It's called being alive. Now, I sent a daily text out to a group, and I met with some friends of mine this morning, some men, and we were talking about what does it feel like to be alive? Now, when you ask someone that question, most of people don't know what that's really like. And I want to ask you that question. What does being alive really feel like?
It's a scary question for me to answer, because now you put me on the spot and I really have to think about that. And I'm usually good. Ask me anything. To be alive, I feel would be to feel joy, to feel comfortable in my skin and what I'm doing. A sense of calm. That's my alive. And, obviously having fun doing that, but just everything's good. I'm having fun. That's my alive.
Oh, I love that, because that actually falls right into exactly what I want to talk about, because everyone feels aliveness is good. And the pleasant feelings like joy and happiness and having calm and peace and, on the beach, but that's not really true. What's true is aliveness is experiencing every emotion that's available to us. The sadness, the grief, the hurt, the pain, the sorrow, the things that are difficult. That is aliveness as much as anything else. For example, when you're crying, you are more complete and whole and congruent and authentic and alive than any other time, because crying tears are one emotion. And since it's one emotion, that's the powerful emotion that's showing up in your body and it's being expressed through those tears.
Wow. It's very interesting, but it makes sense. You didn't say what makes you feel like you're having fun. You meant alive. And the perception is that, all right, for me to feel alive, I got to be, riding my bike. I'm hanging out with somebody who I want to be with. We're having a great time. Everything's great. There's no worries in the world. But you are feeling alive, but that's just one way of feeling alive.
It's the way that in our current culture that we want to feel alive, which means that we are going to avoid the other emotions that show up on the inside of us. And that's where we get into trouble. Because if we refuse to allow an unpleasant emotion to show up, that means that we actually are going to cut off every other emotion, including the pleasant ones, from showing up, because our body is designed to feel everything. Like, let me give you an example. All right. Now, Steve, I know that we're all the same, right? So if you pinch your arm right here, you're going to feel emotions really hard. You can feel pinch your arm for me, right? Pinch your arm, pinch it really hard, hard, pinch it hard. All right. Your brain's like, check this out. I know where that pain is. Exactly, right?
Right.
Well, you don't have two sets of pain receptors in your brain. You have one. When your brain can find the pain, it's like, I know where it's at. But emotional pain is in every cell in your body. That's why emotions are so powerful, because that's why we call ourselves depressed. I don't have depression, right? I have depressed thoughts. I feel like I am depressed. I mean, I'm not my broken arm. I have a broken arm. I'm having depressed thoughts. But since it's everywhere, it is overpowering. And that's where we feel like those things that are showing up emotions are so true. And yet they are just emotions.
Wow, that is powerful stuff. And it really defines a lot of us, that we need to feel all the emotions, I guess. And just go with me on this. And it's very prevalent nowadays. A lot of teenagers cut themselves. And you'll see it on TikTok or Snapchat, whatever it might be, and they emulate each other. Why are they doing that? So
Oh,
they can feel alive.
yeah, that's because physical pain is better than the emotional pain. You are absolutely right, Steve. That's so true. Oh my gosh, I'm glad that you know that. And that's a great reason why when we actually are having physical pain, we feel actually better at some point, because we can actually label it, or we know where it's at. And that's a big deal with children. And, that's one of the reasons why the suicide rate is so high, is because our culture doesn't want us to feel the unpleasant. I mean, look around you.
Absolutely. It's so true. And what are those teens seeing? They're seeing the perfect pictures. A girl and I have a 13-year-old daughter, seeing those images of other people. Everything's great. Everything's fantastic. Look at me, get the perfect selfie. Wow, look at you. Look at what you're wearing. That's not reality, but perception is reality. And that's what they think life should be like. And then it's not their life. So then they
exactly
some type of action.
So we're talking about success. And even in which children, as we're growing up, girls or boys are cutting themselves because they don't really like how life is going. That's because they're taught that what they are feeling is not true, that they're supposed to feel good all the time, and they're supposed to be alive by having fun and enjoying the life. But in true reality, we have more unpleasant experiences than pleasant experiences. But what we don't know is how to manufacture the pleasant experiences. I mean, I love Jordan Peterson, and maybe you read a little bit about him, but he talks about the fact that memory is based on our ability to use those experiences to have a great day today. It's not about remembering what happened. No, it's learning from those experiences. Like, I don't ever want to do that again. And that gets back to the business owner, because if he doesn't fail, he won't be successful. See, if he has to learn what he doesn't know in order to be able to learn what he knows. And procrastination means I'm unwilling to fail.
Well, yes, I was going to talk about that before when you said procrastination. That exactly is where I was going. It's afraid of failure, because if you don't take the next step, procrastinate, you're not going to fail, because you're here. We're not moving forward. We're just here.
Yes, I was having a conversation I mentioned earlier with some friends, and both of them, I've been with them for a number of years now, and they were talking about how impactful it was for them to understand how men are afraid. We're afraid of all kinds of things, and because of our inability to be vulnerable, we don't want to talk about fear. Instead, we go to anger, like, oh, all right, well, I got two emotions, right? None or anger. And when men begin to recognize that they're afraid, now it's not necessarily afraid of death, but afraid of failure, what others are going to think about them, whatever other things are going on in their brain. But accepting the fact that the reason I can't do something is because I'm afraid I'm going to fail, first of all, is not pushing through the emotion. It's recognizing that I'm afraid. And there's nothing wrong with being afraid. Well, why are we afraid? Because we don't know the future. We don't know the future, and we're trying to predict it. And if we're trying to predict always having a pleasant future, then it doesn't work out that way. It's like we have to practice allowing ourselves to be in the fear, because the more we allow ourselves to be in the fear, the more comfortable it becomes. And then it's easier to deal with it when it shows up. And then as you continue to progress in business, you're no longer procrastinating. It's easier to deal with the fears because you've dealt with the small ones along the way. And pretty soon it's not a big deal to have the fear show up. You can move right through it. But if you try to do the big thing, you're going to fail.
All right. So what do we do in that situation? What's step one? Yes, we've admitted it. We're afraid to fail. We got it. We're procrastinating as business owners. We're not moving forward. What's the first step?
Do you believe that you create your own life?
I do believe that. And I believe that more and more on a daily basis. I really do. On my journey, my path. Yeah, you're 100% right.
You got a daughter, right? She's 13. And so we have to create the life with them, because children can be tough to live with, right? Because we got all these influences around them. When I mention to someone that they can create their life, they're often like, well, I'm not in control. No, when you create your life, it's like you create your life based on how you react or how you are with what shows up. if you don't understand that you create your world by the way you handle what shows up, like if you don't ever say anything, if you're always confrontational, you're creating your own world, right?
Yep.
So that means that owning the fear means that I make it about me. It's not about what's happening out here. It's not the economy, or it's not whatever these other things are. It's about understanding it's about me. And that gets back to meditation. If I am aware of what I'm experiencing, then I know what's preventing me from thinking clearly. Now let's go back to being alive. I'm going to tie this all together for you, because when I am alive, that means that I am not focusing what's happening out here. All of us, especially business owners, have this innate understanding of what needs to happen. But if we're concerned about all the stuff that's happening out here and we can't feel what's happening in here, our natural wisdom is this understanding or this intuition that we have about what we need to do. But if we're always in our head and we're not listening to our body, we're going to fail, because our body is natural wisdom. It's how we understand what life is about and how we move toward those things. That's how we move toward joy.
Well, I get back to, let's use that phrase that everybody uses, and I'm a firm believer in it. Go with your gut. That's your body telling you. It knows. Anytime personally that I have not gone with my gut, screwed up. I admit it. I'd say 95% of the time. And I know, and I can peg those moments on my life timeline where the big ones where I screwed up. I know where they are. I just don't want to do them again. And then to your point, those life lessons where you don't. So how do you?
Oh my gosh.
Right? You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, and you're mentioning lifeline or timeline. That's so important, because one of the things that we practice in thinking about becoming, really healthy emotionally is understanding that I have to look at my past. Now, we do know. I want to talk about this a moment. I'll take a little bit of a digression here. Talk therapy is kind of going away a little bit, because if you talk about things that happened in the past and you relive the emotions, it just makes the emotions more powerful. So we really don't do that. But what we do need to know is what happened and what we learned from it, right? So that's that cognitive part of saying, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. What were the emotions? What's the body sensation that I wasn't paying attention to? All right. Now let's talk about this creating your life in the gut, right? Now, I can't prove this, but I've read a lot about how our body works, and I believe energy moves up. Let me make a statement here that I hope that you can grasp this concept. Well, actually, it's not that hard, but it's pretty true. And that is the fact that we never have a random thought, and every thought we have has an emotion attached to it. And since every thought we have that has an emotion attached to it, and we never have a random thought, that means when thoughts show up, they're based on the energy that's on the inside of you. And so if you're listening to your gut and it's the right decision, what are you doing? And so follow this thought. I believe our godliness, our best self, our true self, our real self is in the basis of our tummy. That part of our body right there is our core self, is where our real self is. Now, when you get stressed, it's always in your shoulders, because that's above where you really are supposed to be living. So learning how to meditate, or learning how to pay attention to what's happening on the inside of you, is learning how to get past all that stuff and get down in here. We talked about that last time, and learning how to pay attention to what's down here. When you're afraid, you're feeling it here. You're not feeling it up here, right? And that's learning how to move away from this thought process. People overtalk and they want to talk about it and they want to discuss it. No, it's called the shut up rule. Let's be quiet. Let's listen to what's happening down here. That allows us to pay attention to what's really happening at our gut. When I have someone that's really struggling, one of the first things I teach them is take your fingers, touch your belly button, talk from down here. Now, I talk from down there all the time. I've learned how. When you talk from down here, you're talking from your best self. I very seldom misspeak, because I'm talking from my inner self, my deeper self. I'm not going to harm anybody with my words, because I'm not afraid. I'm present. I'm alive. And it's learning how to manage, or to be aware of, what's really happening on the inside of you, and owning the emotions that show up.
So I have a question based on what you just said. Fear is always based low, and so is your gut. So how do you separate the two and make them work?
You don't have to separate them. You just want to know that when the fear shows up, you're just afraid of something that is imaginary. It's imaginary. It's your imagination.
Okay, wait a minute.
It's not real fear. It's your imagination. There's real harm and imagination harm, and you got to sort the two out.
Interesting thought. I just want to throw out there, let's give everybody your website. We haven't hit that up yet. You have such a handle on what controls all of us that more people should know. What's your website, Dan?
It's transformedlife.net. That's ED, TRANSFORNEDMED.net.
All right. So back to what we just said. Your fear is not real. It's imaginary. I'm trying to process that and think how that might apply. And all of us, let's do the same exact thing.
So let me help you with that. Okay.
Go.
All right. You're 7 years old, right? No matter how hard you try, you're always not doing the right thing. So you just quit. You're just afraid of trying because you're always told no. It's this fear that shows up. When we don't have enough affirmation, enough positivity in the early brain development, then we pick up this fear that I'm always going to be wrong. And that's, there's 5 basic emotions. I want to show you these 5 emotions. Can we go over this real quick? I'm going to give you a screen share here,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Can you see my screen? Whiteboard?
Whiteboard, yeah.
All right. So there are 5 emotions, and I'm going to write these down for you so you can see them. And these are actually in order. They're fear, hurt, anger. I have the most wonderful handwriting. Sad.
Were you a doctor in another life?
Yeah, I was. Joy. All right. Fear, hurt, anger, sad, and joy. Fear's the big one, right? Fear, I'm going to die. Someone's going to like me. Hurt is when the relationship breaks down. Now, hurt is only solved by anger. Now, most of us don't feel hurt. We go right from fear to anger because our culture doesn't want to feel hurt. That's relationships. Sad is a transitional emotion, and joy is at the end of the road. What that means is you also cannot feel joy until you feel one of the previous emotions. It's fascinating how this works.
It really
and so,
is.
in order for us to truly be alive and healthy, we have to actually allow ourselves to experience all of these emotions so joy can show up. I mentioned hurt, which is where I wanted to go with this. Mm-hmm. So when I'm afraid, fear is about something like the relationship is breaking down. Hurt is when the relationship doesn't work. And when the relationship doesn't work, ow, I hurt. That makes me sad, right? Don't get it. And hurt is the most powerful emotion. It's the deepest of all of them.
See, I would think it would be anger.
No, because anger solves the hurt. When I'm mad that it didn't happen.
Okay, so then when you go from hurt, let's say relationship, we'll center on that. You immediately go to anger. It didn't work, and that person is. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because you're saying that person. No, the hurt is I hurt. This hurts me. Ow. If I don't feel the hurt, then it's about they need to stop hurting me. No, I'm hurting because I didn't like what happened. It broke it broke what I was wanting. It just hurts a lot because they rejected me, whatever that is. If we don't understand that our parents actually don't teach us how to feel the hurt when we are hurt, then we shut it off and we go right straight to anger. Remember, if you shut an emotion off, you shut all of them off.
Okay. So Dan, what if you don't want to feel the hurt? I don't want to feel it.
You cut. You run away. You're always angry. See, procrastination is about the fact that I don't want to feel what's true about me. So if I'm always afraid or always hurt, it's always someone else's fault that I'm not doing what I want to do. See, feeling alive means that I can be present and be vulnerable and experience the emotions that's happening in the moment instead of thinking.
Interesting. Wow. There's a lot to process here today.
Oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of depth stuff there. We have more than we can talk about. But again, aliveness and procrastination are together because if I'm feeling all these emotions, I'm alive. And after I feel them, I get to the gut and then I can make a decision. Otherwise, I can't get to my gut because I've stopped my emotions up here.
So in order
I can't really feel my gut.
So let's go back to that. And this transcends to whether it's your personal or your professional life. How do you get to the point where you can safely make that gut decision? Do you have to go through that whole list of emotions? Where do we go?
Okay, so it's baby steps, right? You just can't start feeling the emotion right away. So we have activities that teach you how to begin to notice slowly. It's kind of like, you missed the big free throw, you missed the winning shot at the basketball game. The coach says you need to throw basketballs a lot more for a while, right? You throw some free throws because you need to learn how to shoot. So in the game you can win, right? So you have to practice experiencing fear in lots of different areas before you can do the big one, or hurt also. And relationships are a big deal. Back to hurt in relationships, movies have ruined our culture because we often think that we're supposed to feel in love. Feeling in love is so temporary. Love is understanding that there's going to be all of those 5 emotions in that relationship and how to negotiate it, because we don't know how to repair relationships, because we don't repair them when we're small, when we're young.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yep. And so since that's true, it's, if you really want to change who you are and get to this gut piece, you have to learn how to be okay with all the emotions that show up. And it starts really slowly noticing how you're afraid to, to try to do a different type of a meal or to say hello to someone. You just some small little things to be uncomfortable in your body. Matter of fact, if you truly want to be a healthy adult, then you have to practice being extremely uncomfortable in so many situations, so you get used to feeling uncomfortable as like fear. I'm standing too close, I'm afraid, right? Like learning how to be really uncomfortable in lots of situations, so you get used to the sensation of being uncomfortable, which is fear.
Which is fear. There's a lot. I know exactly what you're talking about, because how many people walk up to somebody else and say, "Hi, how you doing?" No, you're afraid that they're going to think you a freak, and then you don't take that chance. Or if you know somebody, you've met them a couple of times. Hey, you want to go grab a cup of coffee? No. What about if I get rejected? I'm not going to do that. All right. So if you get rejected, so what? But you're never going to know, and you're not going to feel that fear. So I have a question for you, Dan, based on relationships. You talked about love. What if somebody says, "I'm not in love with you anymore"? Now, I'm trying to go back to what you said previously.
Well, that doesn't just happen accidentally. That
Sure.
means that there hasn't been enough events. See, emotions are the result of an event. When you have a great meal, you have great emotions about the restaurant. If you have a bad meal, you have bad emotions about the meal, right? Or the restaurant.
Right.
And so subsequently, feeling in love is the same thing. If you fall out of love, there aren't enough events where you have the opportunity to feel in love. That's why you have to have, in a healthy relationship, 10 minutes a day of really feeling in love. You manufacture the love in the relationship. You don't just let it show up. No, you have to keep it there by connecting consistently. The consistency creates the feeling or the commitment that's there.
Got it. And the reason I asked that was, you said before that there's love and then in love, but the in love is, I think you said, was temporary, right?
Correct. Right. In love is very temporary because it's an emotional state wanting that person to meet your needs. Love is about the fact that I know that I'm going to harm you, but we can always repair it because I'm willing to admit the things that I don't know about you yet. And as we're growing and as we're going forward in this relationship, there's things I can work out. I can make this work, but I know that I'm willing to work through that because I know that I am imperfect too.
Wow. We are digging so deep today, but it's so beneficial, and it is the core of our very being. I'm back to the gut. I want to know how you trust your gut, how you know it's the right decision to make.
Well, you don't know. What I said earlier is that you don't know what you don't know until you fail. And so failure is the only way that you can actually try out whether you're in your gut or not. You've had people that have these crazy ideas about what they want to do and it fails, right? That's because it fails because at the gut level, they wanted something that they thought they needed, but the universe had something else for them. Like I've had 5 careers. And that's because I failed on 4 of them before I got to start doing this one. It was horrible experiences for me, but I was so bound on wanting to be someone different that it just wasn't working out for me. And so suddenly I recognized I've got to do this stuff. I got to be in this. And that's how we are. We figure out the fact that what we're doing isn't working, and we have to pay attention to that. So after a while, failure, if you don't have something in your past where you failed, you will never be successful in the future. Those 2 things are directly related, which is what procrastination is about, fear of failure.
So what you're saying, Dan, is that in order to trust your gut and that feeling, you have to go through the failures to be there. It's not like an automatic thing where, yeah, my gut is just telling me this is what I should be doing, and that's that.
Well, yes, the romance stories just don't do justice to what's truth about relationships. And in business, it's the same thing. Someone doesn't just show up and successful. You're an exact proof example of that, right? You had to nurture yourself to learn the skills to be where you're at. That's how that works, right? So you failed along the way and you learned the things that worked so that you could be the person that you wanted to be. But it's what you learned about you and what worked for you. That's why we have to pay attention to the emotions, because it's not about what worked for someone else. You have to pay attention about what works and doesn't work for you. That's why if you don't feel alive, you can't be successful, really, because you're always doing something someone else wants you to do.
Right. Yeah. And you need to feel those other emotions. And especially as men, we shut them down.
Oh my gosh. Cultural thing, for sure.
Right. Yeah. I'm not supposed to cry. I'm not supposed to hurt. I can be angry. I can be angry. But that's not doing you justice because you just bypass some of the emotions and you're losing out technically.
But let's talk about that for a moment. If a man is angry, he's told that he doesn't have emotions, right? But women want men to be emotional, right? Well, men only have really two emotions. I mean, the fascinating part is that our main construct as men is being angry. Problem is we don't know how to be angry because there's good and there's bad angry. Like, for example, no, I'm not going to do that. No, thank you. It's just not the thing I want to do. Like we talked about with your daughter. Having a solid quality no is anger in a very healthy way. If you don't know how to do that, then you've got a lot of stuff inside you that you haven't let go of yet.
Crazy. There's so much here. And I hope that people are absorbing it because I am. And there's so much to be learned about emotions that nobody else talks about it, Dan. You're the only one. Yeah. Well,
I don't know about the only one, but this is so powerful because again, if you connect with this, if someone wants to work with me, please get on my website. This is the most powerful thing. I see I've worked with 3,500 people in the last 17 years, 3,500, and seen hundreds of people completely change their lives where they are so unrecognizable by their friends because they've moved away from the old self and they are now their new self. Fascinating.
Yep. But you need to learn about yourself and need to learn how to navigate yourself, not just life, navigate yourself. Because
I was on a call this morning and the guy said, Dan, you're reparenting me. Duh.
Reparenting. I think we talked about that. I heard that a while back. That is such a great term because you're relearning yourself again because you didn't get the skills when you were younger.
But it's not that hard. It's just an understanding. A little bit of time, but it's not that hard. I enjoy it. Anyone that's going to work with me is going to enjoy it. It's not a necessarily pleasant journey, but they will enjoy the fact that on the journey at the end of it, they will be so much happier. I promise.
I'm a firm believer if you can see the other side, you're going to get to the other side. And I can see with somebody working with you, you can see the other side. You just got to do it. I call it and we got to run, but I call it the birth canal analogy. You got to go through, and you got to admit it's an unpleasant experience for a baby. It's not so much fun getting through, but once they're born, they're there and things are good.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Great.
Dan, give everybody your website again and tell how they can work with you.
It's transformlife.net. There's a couple boxes on there. Just give me a click. I'll call you back.
Always a pleasure. We always underline that. Put that on the whiteboard. Learn so much every time we have you on.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. We'll talk again soon.
Yep. Thank you, Steve.
And we will be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.